Good morning. My name is Julia Flynn, and you have found us. Today is Monday, and this is Make Some Money, Honey, or Monday Momentum. Today is Groundhog Day, and we're waiting to see if the groundhog will see his shadow, if Punxsutawney Phil will see his shadow or not. So we're very anxious to see if we're going to have 6 more weeks of winter, although it does look that way. We're very excited about our topic today, know-it-alls versus who knows. That's the big question, and it's a conversation about product knowledge. Product knowledge really does encompass everything about any kind of a sales position or any kind of a company. And there's a big debate as to whether it is more important to know an enormous amount about a product or service that you are offering for sale, or if that can be a hindrance. And I do believe that what's interesting is we might have a debate here this morning. We do have two sides of the same coin. It's going to be interesting to hear what everybody has to say. A little bit of background, I have been in sales almost my entire life, professionally since 1988. Prior to that, my very first sales job started when I was 8 years old. I sold greeting cards, so that goes back quite a little way. So I've been doing sales for quite a long time, and I have a very funny story about one of my first retail sales jobs and product knowledge. But I would like to very much introduce my expert panel as well, who is going to talk more about this topic as well. Sarah Coolidge coming to us from the West Coast, where it is 7 a.m., bright and early. Sarah.
Good morning. Yeah, it is bright and early, though. As we do these calls, it's getting lighter and lighter. For me, it's, I can see out the window. So here we are in California. I want to welcome you to Monday Momentum and Make Some Money, Honey. Our idea here is to start your Monday morning at 7 a.m., here in California anyway. Get up and get going. Regardless of what the weather's like outside, Brenda, we know as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small businesses, even if we are working out of our homes, we need to get up and get going or we're not going to get anywhere. And the idea here for our show is that you start your day Monday morning with some really good positive energy so that when you slide in to 5 o'clock on Friday, you feel good about your week, you made progress, you move forward, and that's why we are here to cheer you on to do that. So, good morning. You're muted, baby. Can't hear you.
I want to introduce somebody else who's coming to us from the East Coast this morning, our third panelist, as it were, until some other panelists arrive. I'd like to introduce you to Brenda Graham, who's also coming to you from the East Coast. Brenda.
Brenda.
Brenda, you're muted, honey. But I do want to introduce Brenda Graham, who is the queen. There she goes.
Good morning, everybody. Brenda Graham, your success mentor, coming to you from Columbia, Maryland. And just wanting to say, it is sunshine no matter what you see. The sun is shining. Let's have a great day.
Absolutely. I am very, very excited to have you say that and to remind everybody that no matter where you are, the sun is shining. We are going to be talking about a really great topic today. So is it more important, and I'm going to pose this question, well, actually, I'm going to pose a two-part question. Is it important to know your product inside and out? And if it is, what percentage do you think is the minimum that you need to know? Alternatively, do you think that it makes a difference, product knowledge makes a difference when you're in a certain kind of a business versus another kind? Let's say product versus service, let's say direct sales versus maybe telemarketing or some sort of a corporate sale environment. We want to know how you feel about how much information and knowledge you need to know. Now, I'm going to quickly point out that we just had our other panelist arrive, and she's going to introduce herself when we get to her question. I'm going to start asking this question initially to Sarah, and when I do that, everybody else will be muted and she'll be presenting. So, Sarah, tell us.
So it's interesting because I think you're muting me, but I must unmute myself. Is that the system? So every time you see my hand come up, that's what I'm doing. Nothing personal for anyone. So, we did have a little talk about this before we went on the air, and I do feel like product knowledge is really important, but I can also see that it is going to depend on what it is you're working with. And what I would add to that is there are other things that matter as well. So when you are passionate about the thing that you are presenting to someone else, that's going to take things a long way. And you don't have to know 100% of everything there is to know about it. But if you don't seem to be very excited, intrigued, interested in it yourself, plus you don't know very much about it, I do think that that's a handicap. So I would suggest that if you don't know everything in the world about what you're selling, please be excited about what you're selling so that other people can be drawn into that excitement. They are going to respond to you emotionally more than anything else. And then beyond that, for me, I think, if you are dealing with things like, nutritionals, vitamins, medical supplies, you do need to know a lot about it or be able to access that information, because there are people that will be very interested but will have very, very specific questions. Does that contain niacin? And if you don't know and don't have a way to get at it, they're going to be cautious about buying because they're dealing with their health. So I do think in some fields, definitely, you need to know or know how to find out and get an answer to them as soon as possible. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I do appreciate that. That is good information, and I do agree with you on a lot of what you've said, Sarah. And again, I'm going to be muting everybody just so we're not getting a lot of background noise. That's the only reason I'm muting. But you can unmute yourself if you want to make a comment. Please do unmute yourself or raise your hand if you want to make a comment. So I really appreciate that. And next, I'm going to kick it over to Brenda. Brenda, is it important to know have product knowledge, and what percentage should you know? Should you be 100% knowledgeable? Is that vitally important? And is it more important for some industries than others? That's the two-part question. It's really a three-part question, but I'd really like to know what your thought is.
Well, from a professional standpoint, I think we are all salespeople, and that is our main goal. The issue is that we are always selling. And I think as long as you have a third-party piece of information that you can refer to people as for their informational base, because people who ask questions and questions and questions, there's nothing you can say to them. You always have to give them a third party or something written to actually verify the validity of what they want to know. I think it's more significant to make an attachment to the benefit of the product, and you really don't have to know anything about the product to show the benefit, and to know something about the type of person that you're speaking to or persons and connect those two things. That's the sales. That's why people think car salespeople are so slutty. They don't know anything about those cars or what's under the hood. They have a almost inane way to connect to people. They find out what that person wants to know. They find out the family connections. They make some kind of emotional connection with their client. And from that basis, they sell the product. No, they don't have to have any product knowledge. So that's my take. You make a connection with the person and you move forward and you sell them the benefits. Not necessarily, you're not selling an item, you sell the benefits. You can sell more than one product at the same time.
Gotcha. I love it. I think that's fantastic. And Linda, I'm curious, Linda, is this something that you would want to bring in on there? The question being product knowledge.
Julia, I have gone down that rat hole for many, many years. I have always been, I guess, on the too technical side. And what I've had to do at some point was to step back and say, what is the service that I'm actually delivering? Am I rolling up my sleeves and working in this business, or am I being the advisor and the consultant with the overall knowledge and passion for what I'm selling? So it's a two-edged sword, and I definitely believe it really depends on the industry, and that if you don't have enough knowledge about what you're selling, you're not as credible. But don't fall into the pitfall of being too technical about your product or service and really overkill what the customer needs to know. Like Brenda said, sell the benefits. And don't get stuck in this analysis paralysis. I've done it for too many years.
You have a very, very, very valid point there. So I have a couple of funny stories, and I'll tell you these funny stories, and then I want to hear what everybody thinks about them. The first story is that when the very first day I started selling furniture, I worked in a waterbed store, and I knew nothing about waterbeds. I'm going to unmute everybody. Everybody unmute and comment on this. Everybody comment. So I had never slept in I had no knowledge of waterbeds, and it was a big waterbed store, and I'd never sold furniture. And growing up, to be honest with you, we really didn't have any very nice furniture. We had some really nice sofas my mom had bought once, but all of our furniture was hand-me-downs, and that was just what I was used to. So I personally did not have a great attachment to home decor or anything like that. The very first day I'm on the showroom floor, I get my first up, which meant my first sales opportunity. And it's this couple who came in, and they knew everything about waterbeds, and they wanted to see a super single waterbed for their child. Didn't even know what that was. Somebody pointed it to me. I went all the way to the back, and I'm literally exploring this piece of furniture with the client. I mean, I didn't know how bad it was until one of my coworkers, who at the time was working in the warehouse, was back from me, overheard what I said, and he walked up to me. He goes, "I can't believe you just sold them like a $1,500 waterbed, because I actually heard you pull the drawers out and say, see, it has this thingy that attaches to the other thingy on the side of the bed, and that makes it really good." He said, "That's what you said to these people." I had no idea. I was doing what I had been taught. What I was taught was an old Tom Hopkins thing, and I firmly believed it: transfer of emotion. I firmly believed in transferring my enthusiasm and my excitement to the customer, and again, showing the benefits, not necessarily the features, but the benefit would be that the drawer wouldn't get hung up and this, that, and the other. I mean, I was exploring it as much as they were. So that's one of my first stories. But I want to tell you the converse of what happened, and it happened to me 2 weeks ago. I went on a very important sales call. It was an enormous presentation. I was very nervous. I hadn't done one in a very long time. I have been doing, like Linda, I have been doing social media, websites, search engine optimization, all of this for a very long time now. And I did not realize that I had become somebody who throws out jargon as much as I do and assumes as much as I do. I didn't see myself that way until the person said to me, "That's fine, well and good that you come in here and tell us our this is in bad shape and that's in bad shape and this, da, 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 da. I don't even know what that means. Just tell me why Facebook is so important anyway. Or tell me why having a website is important anyway. I think I'm on the Google, and I think that I'm fine." So, that was like, oh my God, I didn't, like, my product knowledge went the other direction. I'd love to hear everyone's input on those two extremes. My personal experience, throwing myself under the bus there.
Well, I'll chime in because I think that no one else is, so I will. And the first story, you are speaking to what I said earlier. When you have passion, it'll carry you a long way. And maybe, we're talking about product knowledge, and in my mind, if we just were talking about product knowledge, we could certainly come up with some guidelines and some recommendations. But
I know the number. The number is 15%.
15%, okay, and who knows what the study is. Maybe we'll hear that in a minute. But if we want to rank how important is product knowledge compared to having a really good third-party piece, like Brenda referred to, if you've got something else that you can always pull out of your pocket and show them, or some other way, then your product knowledge maybe isn't going to be as important. If you have that passion, like we were talking about, or knowing a lot about the benefits of the product, and of course learning how to relate to people. I mean, that's a whole other sales skill, and we're, if you can't do that, it kind of doesn't matter what your product knowledge is. So learning about that, I would say, is definitely more important. But it is fun to hear how, when you've got a customer that already knows a lot, they can end up teaching you sometimes, and that's fine because the relationship is what's happening, and that's if it's positive, going to help lead to a sale. And I think it's great. You've obviously built a good relationship with the people that you were talking to about the internet marketing as well, because they wouldn't have been comfortable to say, hey, we don't even understand what you're talking about. If you hadn't have built that relationship first, they would have just said, thank you very much, it was nice talking to you, goodbye. And they would have gone on to find somebody they could relate to and feel comfortable with. Because if you don't feel comfortable saying, I don't understand this, that's why I'm looking for someone. You can get your needs.
I agree with you. Brenda, what do you have to say? I know you.
I just have to say that when someone comes into a space, or you go into their space, there are only two things that are happening. They either want to be sold or unsold. And it's as simple as that. So it's your job to really just see really what they want. It's either they want to buy or they don't want to buy. And so once you connect to really figure out yes or no, like the people you just saw, they wanted a service. You had that service. So they just wanted to buy. And that's why they were so clear about what they needed, because they were ready to buy.
Agreed.
And,
They were.
yeah.
They were ready to buy. They just wanted to see the model and the whole thing. It's true. It's very true.
And Julia, they really didn't want to know the how. They just wanted the benefit.
Right.
And that's where IT people get so absorbed into the technicalities of telling people things they don't want to know. They just want to know, can you fix it?
Well, I think for both of the stories that you told us, they wanted to buy, both of those, the waterbed people and the tech people, they both wanted to buy. That part was already said.
Yes, they did. They did both want to buy. Well, ultimately, anyway, yeah. I mean, it's just very interesting because in one case I had zero knowledge, in the other case I had too much knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But they came to a waterbed store, Sarah. They came to a store.
Yeah,
So they did want to buy.
But that happened a lot. There were a lot of people who were curious. There were a lot of people. That was a neat product to sell, man. That was probably one of the most fun products to sell. There were people who would just come in because they were just, what is a waterbed? Like, had no idea. Even though a waterbed's been around since the 70s, some people really thought of it as a swimming pool in your bedroom. So,
Julia, I thought you were going to tell a story that you were testing out the waterbed in the storefront window, but we didn't go there. Anyway,
no.
A little bit more about the product knowledge. One thing that I find is it is a fine line between being an expert and conveying the confidence that you have in your product or service to your client, and the fine line of stepping over it and making the client feel inferior, making them feel that they don't have enough technical savvy to continue on with the conversation, and therefore that is the excuse not to buy. So I don't think we always have to have all the answers. I think what we have to do is to be able to portray the confidence that we can get any answer that we don't have.
I think you have hit the nail on the head, and that was actually my experience when I sold printing, Linda. When I sold printing, I mean, I wasn't a pressman. I didn't do graphic design at that point. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. I really didn't. And one of the things that was the most fun is being able to admit to somebody, that is an excellent question. Let me get back to you on that, or let me get back to my team. And one of the things that I always like to do is integrate the production people with the client, and then it became this really strong marriage. But that does actually open the door to a different question that I have, which is, if we're going to relate this back to either direct sales or network marketing, that is really where my question came from. Because my experience has been very heavily corporate sales, but I am really curious. I mean, and actually, I think, Sarah, you were touching on this with the health and wellness piece. If you're going to be doing a direct sales business of any kind, do you need to know a lot, or do you need to know how to guide them? And Brenda, this, I feel like you were touching on this a tiny bit as well with the third party referrals. And I just feel like we're kind of around that conversation, but I really want to hear, how does this play into the whole network marketing direct sales business, not the corporate sales business? Don't everybody jump in at once. Sarah?
We're used to being told what to do. I was like waiting. Who does she want to talk? So.
I thought you meant in general. All of us are used to being told what to do. So when it comes to sales.
I think with direct sales and network marketing, which, I think everything is network marketing, but if we're talking more specifically about the traditional definition of that, passion is really going to take you a long, long way. And you, especially in the beginning when you're all excited yourself about this new venture that you're in, and that passion is what's going to help you enroll all your closest people around you, your warm market, which is usually kind of where you start. But I do think that you're going to feel more comfortable when you have some product knowledge. Whether or not it's absolutely necessary, I do think that it's not going to hurt you. And again, I will say, when it comes to the health-related items, that does not mean you have to know. And in fact, I would rather not know, because the last thing you want to do, or not be sure. And what I mean is, the last thing you want to do is say, there's 50 milligrams of niacin in this, and really there's 500. If you make a mistake, it can really impact someone's health. So the thing you would want to do is have that fabulous third-party referral. This just tells you exactly what's in it. And what I always do is say, I'm not a doctor, and anytime when it's something to do with your health, I recommend you take this to your doctor and have them look at it if you've got medical supervision going on with your health, which I would hope you would most of the time, and pass the buck that way. But I do think it does help with your confidence and with your authority, when you can talk about, what's the basic properties of this, how it works, why it works. And for me, at least, that makes me more comfortable when I'm in a selling conversation. I do also agree with Linda that there is a trap where you feel like, I can't sell anything to anybody until I know everything there is to know about it, and that'll just keep you from moving forward forever. So don't use it as an excuse. And that's why your company probably gives you lots of flyers and booklets and DVDs and videos, because those can do that educating for you. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can bring that third party in a real way, which, is what you said about it wasn't the waterbed store, but some store where you worked, where if you bring another person in, and then you've built a little triad, and that solidifies the sales process as well. It gets more people involved, more energy involved. So
that always has worked for me. Actually, no matter what I've ever sold, having a team environment. And I really would like to hear from Brenda and Linda on this. What are your thoughts? And explain how you use third-party referrals too. I mean, the way I've used them is two different ways. One way to use a third-party referral is to say, hold that thought, I don't know the answer to that question, let me call somebody back at such and such place and get their input. Or I've used a third-party referral a different way, which is on the front end. Hey, I know you had some questions, Mary. Let me introduce you to someone. Is that how you've used them, Brenda or Linda?
In a really good team spirit, if we're speaking of network marketing, there is always that, they call it a third-party call or a third-party connection. I almost always use that, because that takes you off the hot seat. So you can always refer to your person who is the expert to validate whatever it is you have to sell, whether it's vitamins, nuts and bolts. It doesn't matter. If you have an expert who can confirm you and say to you, edify you, then that's the best way to do it. And you never have to hear a no. because your third party expert will always take care of that for you, and they'll answer all the hard questions.
So what does
So,
that process look like, Brenda?
I'm sorry.
How does that work exactly? If I
Um,
want to do that, how do I actually do that? And I'd like to hear from everybody on this. What does that actually look like? I meet someone, and then how do I introduce them to this third party call?
the companies that I work with, we usually have a list or a team of people, and they are actually validators. They're people who do nothing. They give you a time of when they're available, but they do third party calls, and or they will come when you're doing a presentation, and they will be there with you, and they actually handle that part. So you would say to the client, oh, this is so and so and so and so, and you edify them. You tell their credentials, and they can answer anything you might like to know. They will answer your hard questions because I'm always new at the game. I'm never the expert. So if I'm with a client or if I'm talking to somebody, I never know all the details. That's what my third party validator is for. So whether it's in person or a video or sending them a PDF, I don't have to be the expert, because if you're selling, especially a network marketing company, you don't want anybody to think that they have to know a whole bunch of knowledge and information. You want to relieve them of that responsibility. The only responsibility they need is to say yes and have the money to buy it.
Gotcha. So it's kind of twofold. So when I said what's the actual process, and Sarah, you could speak to this too because of CEO space and having calls made to other people too. And I guess what I'm saying to both of you and actually to Linda too, I don't know if you can unmute on this, is the process looks like I meet somebody, I meet Mary, and I want to introduce something to her. I will call my third party person on a conference call, and we together will call that third person, the prospect, as it were. And then
Exactly.
okay. And I'm saying that because if you are not used to doing a third party call, the first time that was said to me, I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I really didn't know, and I didn't do it too often, but I know that some people are firm believer in that, and actually I got way more comfortable doing it when I was working with Sarah's, the company that all of us met through, which is CEO Space. And do you do that with CEO Space, Sarah? Is this a tool you use?
Yeah, I'm curious because you said basically you meet them and you immediately do a third-party call, and I've never done that, and
No,
maybe.
I'm saying what is your process? I meet somebody and I think, oh, I want them to talk to somebody. How do I make that happen? But yeah, tell us how you would get them to that point, please.
Well, usually, there's a preliminary trying to get to know them well enough to know if they're qualified, if they're a fit, or if we're a fit for them, however you might want to say that. And then once I've gotten to know them a little bit and their needs and what their project is, then I search my internal Rolodex for the people that I know that are willing to talk with people and have something to offer in that area. If they're somebody that does restaurant work, that's going to be different than someone who has a tech program, for instance. And that's how I decide who to have the third party person. And then I set an appointment with them and we'll get on the phone again. Is that the question that you?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. And Linda, do you have anything to toss in on that?
So absolutely, I think it really comes back down to sales.
Okay.
If a lot of people starting asking questions, and if you're new at sales, you tend to go off on these tangents and want to go solve that problem to get that answer. My feeling is what you really need to do is to drill down a little bit more. I can get you that answer in a moment, but is there anything else that we need to address before that? Because what could happen is you could go off on this tangent, get them involved in this third party call, and they've not qualified themselves, or they have other questions and they're not ready to close. And I feel that bringing in the third party, they should be ready at that point.
I get it. I see what you're saying. I absolutely do, and I really like what you're saying too. It's interesting because, again, it was a new concept to me, and I think Sarah and Linda, you are 100% right, and I think Brenda, you're 100% right. using this extra person that you edify. And that was how I was introduced to the idea. Somebody else did it with me, and I thought, this is genius, because again, I don't need to be the answer box. I don't need to be the knowing be all end all. And like Brenda said, putting somebody else in the driver's seat as the knowledgeable one. I love that. And I love what you said, Sarah, about get to know this person and find out where they are. And Linda, you're right. Where are they in the process, and how do I bring somebody in? Well, it is 10:30. We have actually gone all the way to the bitter end of our time together, which is only a quick 30 minutes every Monday morning, and I'm very excited about this topic. Again, it was a hot debate, but it really wasn't. We all firmly believe that some product knowledge is better than none, or however much is the amount that, whatever it is important. We did talk about three-way calls or third-party calls, which I'm dying to know more about as we get more into our discussions. I want to talk about that and scripting and how do we move beyond that and follow up and how do we choose the right person for third-party calls. This is extremely exciting to me to share this and to talk to so many experts. I'd like everybody to do your sign-off. Please tell me who you are, where you are, and how we can find you by your website or by your email. And I want to start with Linda, then go to Brenda, then go to Sarah, and then I'll do the sign-off. Linda?
All right, well, Linda at lindak.com. And it is a very snowy day here in New Hampshire, so I am headed back out with that shovel. 4 hours on my birthday the other day, and looking forward to at least another probably 2 hours today.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you for being with us today. Brenda, who are you? Where do we find you?
Brenda Graham, your success mentor at brendagraham.com, the queen of network marketing. And I am in Columbia, Maryland on a sunny day, whether we can see it or not.
And Sarah?
I'm Sarah Coolidge out here in Lake Tahoe, California, not quite in the lake, but very close to it. And I'm state director for CEO Space in this area. CEO Space is a large company designed to help your small company close the gap between where it is and where it wants to be. So if you have a project you're trying to move forward, you can check me out at ceospacewest.com. And I just want to throw out there that the thing that we really spent a lot of time rediscovering today was that the relationship building and the ability to listen are such key skills with all of this. So just put those in your back pocket. Have a fabulous week. We'll see you again next Monday on Monday Momentum, and make some money, honey.
That is fantastic, and I want to thank everybody for joining us and all the viewers who are watching right now. My name is Julia Flynn Worry. You can find me on my website, makesomemoneyhoney.com. My specialty is helping you to make some money online and offline, and I am so glad that you've joined us. Join us next week on the 9th when we talk about how to choose the right company. How to choose the right company. That's our topic next week. Thanks so much. We loved having you.
Bye. Have a great week.